following your tweets with interest this week. You've been getting increasingly angry, I think it'd be fair to say. You said, I'm now enormously frustrated by US and Israeli government's barbaric acts in Gaza. I will not be shy in sharing that opinion on Piers Morgan's show today. Why are you so frustrated?
Well, honestly, I didn't expect the framing that you put on this segment, and it's framing like that. That's disgusting. So I don't see what this has anything to do with anti-Semitism. I formed Young Turks and TYT with two Jewish friends who are some of my friends growing up. We've known each other and been brothers for over 40 years now.
They're not Armenians, though, so it's fine.
Shots fired.
So I think what Hamas did is disgusting. I cry for those Israeli innocent civilians. But do I see you guys crying for Palestinians? I mean, Chris Christie was just on here treating it like it's no big deal because what, Palestinian lives don't matter? I think the real bigotry here is saying that Palestinians, we can kill 3 times as many of them already. And this is the appetizer. Netanyahu and his barbaric government have not even started the entree of murder and death and mayhem they're about to do. And that's somehow okay, killing 3 times as many Palestinian civilians, let alone the occupation, which is bigotry by definition. We say that everyone in the world can defend themselves, can have their own state, can have sovereignty, except the Palestinians. And the reason...
And the Kurds.
And the Kurds, of course. Yeah, that's very, very true. But I think that there's a specific thing in both the US and the UK, of which the two people here are representatives of those countries, essentially, in this debate, are 2 countries that do indeed and do not recognise the state of Palestine, outside of loads of other countries that do. But obviously, the US have the veto vote on the recognition, so... Sucks to be a Palestinian.
True. And in terms of them being representatives of the 2 countries, both of them will be the heads of government of those 2 countries at some point.
True. We looking forward to getting the choice between Sir Keir Starmer or Piers Morgan at the next election.
No, Piers Morgan will be the leader of the Labour Party, and Farage will be leader of the Conservative Party, and Britain will sink into a morass beneath the sea, a new Atlantis, if you will.
I mean, hopefully, if anything, right, if there's one good thing to come out of climate change, is that it might sink the UK, so it is no more.
True.
That might be the one little silver lining on the cloud of climate change. It might be the end of Britain.
Yeah, exactly. And the Netherlands, because they beat us at cricket that one time. So we're going to sink into shitty water as well. Oh, for fuck's sake.
I know, right? It's going to be a real fun drowning experience for the collective consciousness of the UK, and that not only will the UK be gone, it'll be gone into the rivers of our own shit that we have pumped into the surrounding seas.
Well, this is the thing. Which one will kill you first, drowning or cholera?
Fingers crossed.
We'll wait and see.
Time to have the betting pools open.
Yeah. Banzai!
I might have some fun. Roll the dice on the demise of the UK.
Yes.
And that Muslims are too violent and cannot control themselves, so they must be occupied for 56 brutal, disgusting years. So I've had enough of the bigotry against Muslims and Palestinians, and I need you to speak out against that instead of covering every outrageous, atrocious action of the right-wing government of Israel and going, oh, it's anti-Semitism. No, and there is global anti-Semitism. There's anti-Semitism here in this country. 2 synagogues were shot up, Pittsburgh and in Southern California. We fight against that all the time.
There was a leader of a synagogue that was killed, actually.
Yes, yeah, fucking awful shit. But as I've said before, it's not Palestinians or Muslims doing this. It's white guys. It's right-wing, far-right lunatics that are going into mosques and synagogues and shooting the place up.
Yeah.
Don't get played. It's not Jews and Muslims. You're not each other's enemies. You don't need to be that way.
No,
the real problem, the people bombing most Muslims in the world are like America and Britain and France and shit.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it was very heartening to see on like the Palestinian marches, both here and in the US, Jews and Muslims marching alongside each other, saying that you know ethnic cleansing might be a tad problematic. It's not a good look.
Yeah.
Don't do it sweaty.
True.
But I was also going to point out, there was a point I was going to make, and I've completely forgot what I was going to say. Oh yeah, the thing is, there was the person from the leader of the synagogue that was killed was in Rashida Tlaib's constituency, as far as I was aware, or her house district, I think they're called in America. I'm not a Yankoid, I don't know. And like she was getting harangued on Twitter why she's not spoken about this person, and she just had done it on Facebook and not on Twitter.
Wow, you a moment of sensitivity towards Jewish people was not deemed appropriate for Twitter. What a surprise! Honestly,
To be fair, if you got a choice of, right, do you put your heartfelt condolences for your dead friend on Facebook, owned by Mark Zuckerberg, or do you put it on Twitter, owned by Elon fucking Musk? It's difficult.
Exactly.
It's a difficult choice.
Exactly. Like I wouldn't feel safe as a Jewish person giving my fucking gefilte fish recipe on Twitter, let alone talking about a Jewish person being murdered. Do you know what I mean?
Considering the amount of anti-Semitism that's been like openly allowed and emboldened by Elon Musk just being friends with neo-Nazis, I'm kind of like I would probably go off it a little bit. At least the moderation is a little bit more strict on Facebook.
True.
Is criticized, people go, oh no, it's anti-Semitism. No, there's real anti-Semitism. Instead of attacking that, all you guys ever do is hide behind the veil of anti-Semitism. Do you know why Palestinians might not like Israelis? Because they've been oppressed for 56 straight years.
I hear you. And let me respond. I'm not you
also,
guys.
Cenk came out of the blocks like super hard here.
Yes.
He came in super hard. Like, he doesn't even know Piers' position on this, which, to be fair, isn't obviously a great one. He's a contrarian. But I would usually save it until I actually had the opinion of my opponent before going off. I don't know. It's just me.
True. Well, he might have seen the thing he did with Hassan and gotten a fair idea of his position, probably.
True.
Fit into any neat fit on this issue at all. B, I've actually covered this story, I think, more fairly than most people. I've had many pro-Palestinian voices.
To be fair, and I rarely want to be fair to Piers Morgan because he is a cunt, and I don't think he's doing it for good reasons. I think he's doing it for clicks. But he has had on more pro-Palestinian voices than most other shows and channels have. So I will give him that. I don't think he's doing it for good reasons, but I think he has been more balanced in the general kind of guests he's had on.
I agree, because his main motivator isn't some kind of geopolitical side that he's taken. It's views and money and fame.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
it. He presents his viewing figures to his boss and say, look, I made us load of AdSense revenue. Please love me. That is his singular goal. He has no other ideological inclination in what he's doing here. Because, I think this is what we've seen here is, you know how there was this big discussion going on about should leftoids go on Talk TV? Should they go on GB News? And I think we've settled this debate that yes, you should go on, right? Because we've had Hassan, we've had Cenk, we've had Grace Blakely, Bassem Youssef. All of these people have gone on to Piers Morgan's show, tens of millions of views out of this. And I don't know if you've seen the comments for, like, I've looked in the Hassan and the Grace and the Bassem Youssef videos, especially the Grace Blakely videos, and it's all like universally positive towards the pro-Palestinian guest. And, there are probably plenty of people in the audience who hadn't heard these perspectives before. And clearly we've reached people if they are responding in earnest with positive comments to our comments on these things. Maybe it's different on GB News given the circumstances or given like the kind of audience you might get from Piers Morgan as opposed to Nigel Farage or whatever it might be. But I think that we can put to bed these discussions of platforming when you're a Twitch streamer getting platformed by Piers Morgan.
Yeah, they are. They are generally positive towards the interview. They generally seem to be respectful towards Cenk. That's cool.
I've given a huge platform for. They've been getting enormous audiences from Bassem Youssef to others, and I've done that.
Okay, that's humble brag. Come on.
Well, I like that he talks about Bassem Youssef but didn't mention Cenk's nephew.
That's a bit of a flex. Come on,
quite deliberately, because I think these voices are important to be heard, including yours. I certainly wasn't accusing you, by the way, or your organization of anti-Semitism. I just think
if Piers Morgan wants to have me on, I will happily go in there. I will call him bad names though. Like, I will not be the civilized guest I think he wants. If you want that, Helena is like a grown-up who can have proper conversations. I will just call him like a fucking weird little gammon spam blob,
Don't call him a baboon in the suit though. He'll get very offended.
He will get very offended by that. Yes, that is true.
I have found it, as somebody who's always identified as liberal myself, I've found it very dispiriting to see people who call themselves liberals, whose instant response, it seemed to me, to one of the worst terror attacks we've ever seen was to immediately side with the place where these attacks have been launched from. Now,
Whoa, home slice. Whoa, time out. Does that mean that, the 7/7 bombers were from Britain? So does that mean that we shouldn't have at any point given a fuck about ourselves during the aftermath of that? Because that's the
I
place where the
condemn
bombers
Britain
came
for the
from.
7/7 bombings, right? I'm going to put myself on the record. I condemn Britain for being the country that hosted the terrorists that committed the awful 7/7 bombing that I absolutely condemn and reject as being a method of... See, I did it correct this time, chat.
You did.
Be happy.
It's fucking ludicrous that you would ever apply that standard, that some terrorists came from a place, therefore you can't side with that place. Well, no, I side with that place, at least in part because the terrorists did come from there. Because the people that live there are going to be the victims of the backlash to that. They didn't call for this. They didn't want this to fucking happen because they knew what would happen afterwards. And 5,000 of them are already fucking dead.
Exactly.
They're being
And of course,
ethnically cleansed from the north of the tiny bit of land they had anyway.
Exactly. And of course, as you rightly point out there, there's the ethnic cleansing going on. And the reason why Hamas exist is because the position of occupation that the Palestinian people are currently in, right? The only reason why somebody can get radicalized into that position is because of the material conditions that they are subjected to. As Hassan rightly pointed out on the last interview with Piers Morgan in their debate that they had, right? People don't just wake up one morning and decide that they're evil to do evil things. They get radicalized in the position to do these evil things because of the material conditions that they are subjected to. This would not have happened, right? It's objective truth analysis to say, not justification, but analysis to say that if the occupation wasn't there, these groups wouldn't exist. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. By Pagan Man, thank you for the bits, and also asking the very fine question: does the UK have the right to defend herself?
From herself, absolutely.
Yeah, honestly, it's it's like a dual personality civil war. Love it.
I don't tar all Palestinians with the brush of being Hamas at all.
Except you literally just insinuated that you do. You literally said, because these people came from this place, that place can go fuck itself. What? If you're a fucking lunatic, mate.
I mean, it's very easy for somebody like Piers Morgan to hold multiple different positions in his head because that's all of the potential positions his audience could be leading to try and maximize the people who click on the video.
And in fact, the sooner Hamas are out of there, the better for the Palestinian people and the world. But I just think the only human response you can have is, as you did, by the way, to your credit, is it was disgusting what happened on October the 7th. Now, the question then becomes, what is a proportionate response by Israel? Not just to the terror attacks of October the 7th, but obviously there is now a huge ongoing escalation in what has been, as you rightly say, a 56-year war, effectively, in varying degrees over that period.
War.
That's where I think...
Wars happen when two countries with militaries fight each other. I mean, maybe not in the technical sense, but as far as I'm concerned, I think war is a more grandiose term than an occupation in which sometimes sporadic terrorism happens, right?
Yeah.
An organised military fighting against an organised military. This is an organised military engaging in a military occupation of multiple territories in violation of international continually for over half a century at this point, almost a century, really and truly, if we go back to when these things started happening, right? We're 75 years of the occupation itself against a ragtag band of militants and terrorists who cause terrorist attacks to happen intermittently, right? Yeah. This is not some kind of equal, symmetrical conflict happening here. I'm not saying that terrorism is good. I've explicitly said that terrorism is bad on multiple occasions over and over and over again because people in the West think that you're justifying things by going through the material conditions that led to the point. And I want to labour that point continually, just in case anybody is none the wiser about my overt condemnation of Hamas that I have done over and over and over again. But it is important to say that it is not a symmetrical relationship here between the most high-tech and highly funded military in the entire Middle East versus some people with bottle rockets, right?
Are you suggesting there's a power imbalance between the nuclear armed state and the guys having to build rockets out of water pipes?
I may be making that insinuation, yes, Kev.
Okay. I mean, I don't know. That's a hot take. I'll let the future historians decide, you know?
True.
I'm struggling to see how a ground invasion by Israel, with all that would entail, particularly mass deaths of Palestinian civilians, how that is going to do anything for any peaceful resolution to this. I think.
Okay, but the Palestinians are already fucking dying and they haven't invaded. So, the Palestinians should just sit there and get bombed to death, all of them?
I mean, one can only expect that to be the natural outcome of what Piers is proposing here.
Yeah. Like you would ever accept. Imagine if this was happening to Britain. Well, Britain. Well, look, the British people just have to stand there and sort of take it, really. You know, like you would ever be okay with that.
But Kev, right? We were completely innocent. Whereas, have you heard that people from Hamas had Ramzi Youssef's biography?
True, and they are the ISIS, Al Qaeda, KKK, Boko Haram, IRA.
Megazord.
Yeah,
I
fact.
think it will have the opposite effect.
Yes. So let's take it one at a time. First of all, as you rightly point out, on Young Turks, we covered the atrocious actions.
I know it's not really that relevant, I guess, but just the optics of it, naming yourself after a group who specifically did a genocide and saying we at the Young Turks, X, Y, and Z condemn genocide is spectacular. It really just is. It's a thing. You didn't need to call it that.
It's
anything else.
Like we, the Roman army channel, we do indeed condemn the colonization of Anatolia.
Love it.
Of Hamas right from the get-go, and we condemned it as fully as anyone can possibly condemn it. Because not only are they killing those poor innocent Israelis that didn't do anything, those little babies and the grandmothers, it's disgusting what they did. But on top of that, they're ruining the Palestinian cause. They've burned the moral high ground to cinders. And then on top of that, they smear all people of Muslim background like myself. And then it unleashes this bigotry of anti-Muslim bigotry throughout the world. I'm sick of. So screw Hamas and their barbarism, okay? Now, in terms of a proper...
Cenk, have you thought that you being pro-Palestine might lose Joe Biden some votes in Kansas? And
exactly.
So
have you not thought about the electoral consequences for you having a moral position on this issue?
Exactly. I mean...
Do you not want the Democrats to win? I can't believe you wouldn't compromise on your ethical positions to try and get lukewarm neoliberals elected to Congress.
Outrageous. I know. Look. This is maybe part of his grand 4D strategy of becoming president of the United States of America, which will definitely happen.
That's a thing that will definitely happen. I know it's absolutely going to happen. No doubt.
Nostradamus said it. You have to read between the lines a lot, but he did. Okay.
Reaction. Yes, you need to get those hostages out. So now let's look at I'm going to suggest what to actually do. I'm going to be constructive, but first let's look at the unconstructive solution that Israel had. Dropping bombs on residential buildings. 50 ambulances have been hit.
Which, to be fair, they've tried a lot of times before, and it hasn't ever worked.
No.
Crazy, that, isn't it? You know, it's a little bit like, getting out of your trenches to walk slowly into machine gun fire and then wondering why it didn't work 20 times in a row.
10 out of 25 hospitals don't operate anymore. The incubators are about to run out of energy. There's 45 babies that might die today. The parents, I just read on CNN, are writing the names of the kids on their calves, on their legs, so that if they are killed in a bombing and they're mutilated, they can find their bodies. Imagine writing the name of your child on their legs so that you could find them in the rubble after Israel or any government drops a bomb on them. And I need the West to understand something. Bombs kill people. And do you know how they kill people? They incinerate them alive, or their heads explode. So what happened in Israel was a disaster and disgusting. But you have to be equally honest and equally outraged at the immorality of incinerating babies and grandmothers and aunts and uncles, which is what we're doing right now. America cannot keep sending aid for death and destruction. Enough of the occupation. End it.
Based.
That's a great freeze frame of Cenk there.
It is also a great freeze frame.
I'm just gonna take a little screen cap of that for my future segment thumbnail.
Thumbnail-a-palooza. Let's go. Yeah,
Sorry.
it looks like if he could, he would reach out and devour literally his head. He would just dislocate his jaw and swallow his entire head like a fucking
distend
animal.
it, yeah.
Today, end it today. It's monstrous. Okay, I'm going to
Cenk,
get
let me ask you this.
Solution.
I completely understand your passion and your anger. I completely get this. I, like you, want to see some resolution.
I love the start of that monologue there was, I need people from the West to understand that bombs kill people. I'm like, fucking hell, they do? Jesus, I didn't know.
Well, I mean, he's making, obviously in a very literal sense, a ridiculously obvious point. But people do this. They'll talk about like precision-guided bombing. I mean, firstly, it doesn't matter how precision it is. If it's in a built-up area, you're going to kill innocent people. And secondly, I think we've seen how precise these motherfuckers are when they're been bombing the wrong country. They were trying to
Well,
bomb
yeah, literally in
Palestine, and
Rafah,
they
yeah.
bombed Egypt. So
They didn't
I
do
don't
that.
know. I don't know if you can't get the right country on the map. I don't know how fucking precise this is. So like
No.
the idea that there's some like clean, easy way of doing war is fucking nonsense. Especially when you're dropping bombs from a plane. It's not precise. It does kill people. It does destroy people. And so I think bringing home viscerally to people I mean that's why images are quite good for this, and why the sterilization of war by like pixelating everything you ever see doesn't do a service to mankind.
Yeah.
Because bringing home the visceral nature of, like, say, the Vietnam War, it was one of the first wars to be sort of filmed in real time, and you could, you know, transmit the data across oceans and all the rest of it. And so, you know, Americans could see what was happening in their own living rooms, and that was huge in terms of turning people against the barbarism of that in a way that they could never have done in previous wars, because that information just wasn't available. And so, bringing forward the idea to people that bombs kill people, it fucking destroys bodies. Literally, there's an unbelievably graphic image of a guy carrying what looks like chicken or something in a bag. It's just some indiscernible meat, and it was his child.
Yeah, it was parts of his child. That's how it was described in the video that I saw. Carrying these grotesque
in a
pictures.
plastic zipper bag.
Yeah, these grotesque pictures would never get to people without this kind of photographic access or whatever it is. Yeah, you're absolutely right. People are too far removed from the realities of conflicts in their comfortable little Western, very sheltered little lives. That's why 9/11 was such a big thing for America. When I think it was Vorsh that pointed this out on his bit, talking about Hassan's justification or for what he said about 9/11, and saying, well, you know, 9/11 was terrible, it was awful, but really and truly that was like a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of what America had caused in its indiscriminate campaigns of military intervention in the Middle East continually, with no regard for the effect it would have on the domestic population, the ramifications it would have for geopolitics for decades and almost probably a century to come from there. And like, you know, how many 1,900 people died on 9/11? Like a million people died in the Iraq War and the events that followed.
Yeah, we get the occasional taste of terrorism, the occasional 9/11 or 7/7, some low-level stuff as well. But by and large, that kind of shit wouldn't even make it into the fucking news in most places in the Middle East, in Afghanistan.
No, of course it wouldn't, yeah.
Bombs go off all the fucking time. People don't even seem to realise this. They're often shocked when I tell them. The vast majority of people killed by Islamic terrorism are Muslims from different sects. The amount of mosques that get blown up because the other side are apostates, or they're not real Muslims, or this, or that, the other.
Or not even like specifically religious claims, just territorial claims, right?
Yeah.
Different people just wanting to have access to the territory and the ownership of the land to be the ones who are in power. Those people who die are just civilians. Civilians are in the way because they're in the area that they want power, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, we get a tiny taste of it, a tiny little scintilla of it. And we freak the fuck out. These people
we destroy entire countries. I guess we did do that, but it wasn't even us that got hit in 9/11. America got hit in 9/11, and then we decided to join them in raising another country to the ground.
The coalition of the willing.
True. Well, the defensive alliance of NATO strikes again.
Yeah. You say we destroyed Afghanistan. Not true. Because before the Taliban were in power, but now the Taliban were in power, and they had an awesome gym to work out in. So
yeah, well, at least they've got a cricket team that beats other teams. It beats us at the World Cup. We destroyed them so bad they now beat us at the World Cup.
Exactly. Look, we may have destroyed them, but we gave them cricket, and in many respects, isn't that more important? No, it isn't. Obviously.
Yeah.
Witnessing. How do you get rid of Hamas if you don't do it the way Israel are currently doing it? How do you act?
What the fuck are you talking about? This isn't going to get rid of Hamas. Unless you liberate all Palestinians, which might be the actual goal here.
Yeah, well, unless you can raise the entirety of Gaza City to the ground, turn it all into rubble, find the entrance of every single tunnel under Gaza City, and then completely fill them up with like molten aluminium, and then presumably kill all the hostages at the same time. Like, this isn't like the security that Hamas have set up for themselves is so kind of watertight in terms of what they have access to in Gaza City. It would be impossible to get rid of Hamas. And even then, every bomb that you drop, every building that you destroy is another Hamas recruit or recruit to a similar group that's been splintered in as elsewhere. The PFLP, or the DFLP. They could go other splinter group. They could Palestinian Islamic Jihad, or some new group might form. Whatever. Every single building that you destroy is another recruitment tool for the radicals who who oppose you. It's as simple as that. So this idea of getting rid of Hamas is nonsense. And Israel know it's nonsense because Yoav Gallant has moved back on that position. They've now changed their position to eradicating Hamas to trying to remove their authority in the region. So it's not even about destroying Hamas anymore as far as the literal military general, or might be foreign secretary of Israel is concerned. They know that the idea of getting rid of Hamas is nonsensical.
Yeah.
Actually eradicate what has become a nihilistic ISIS-style terror group who've quite deliberately...
ISIS-style terrorist group. You are such a shitbag. You are the worst journalist. Piers Morgan.
Terrible, because they do hate each other. And also, I think it's worth pointing out the different material conditions that led to ISIS and Hamas, whereas Hamas are they're specifically because of the PLO's movement towards non-violence, and also both of which are the result of the occupation of that area. It's a long, drawn-out position of occupation that's led to the radicalization of these people, whereas ISIS are different because they sprung up almost overnight, really and truly. They were an instant response to Western intervention in the Middle East that created a vacuum that was then filled by people who could be radicalized to that. There's no vacuum being filled by Hamas. It's different material conditions, different circumstances, and to call them Hamas-like to call Hamas ISIS-like is so completely ignorant of the history of both of those factions. And of course, I condemn both. I'm just going to say it yet again, so in case people start moaning at me in chat for you're justifying it by talking about the material conditions. No, I'm not. But it is important to understand the context so that you can know how you ensure that these radicalizations don't happen in future. Because that's the truth, right? People always talk about the retribution, right? How do we beat the bad people? Whereas utilitarians would say, no, well, hang on a minute, the bad people have done bad things now, and that can't be undone. We can't bring all of these people back to life, right? That's happened. What we need to talk about, as well as trying to ensure that the people who cause those things have their comeuppance, do have retribution. How do we create the material conditions that mean that these things never happen again, right? Never again is never again for a reason. And it's not never again in reference to a certain group of people, or never again in reference to a certain space and time. It is making sure the acts, like what happened on the 7th, or like as what's happened after the 7th in response, the conditions for these never happen. And unless we learn those lessons, it will happen again.
Indeed, sir. And this speaks to a point that Hassan made about him being a telegrapher for the Israeli government. It reminds me very strongly of the Naftali Bennett clip, where he constantly kept saying ISIS Hamas or Hamas ISIS. You're literally doing Israeli talking points on your fucking television show, Piers.
Well, yeah, there's a whole propaganda thing, like what we saw with the Al Qaeda book that they had on the hard drive, or whatever it was. They are explicitly trying to have this narrative of trying to equivocate between Hamas and ISIS. What I'm assuming, because the terrorist tactics are reasonably similar, I guess. The use of shock and awe to try and terrorize your opponents and killing civilians, all that kind of atrocious, actual atrocities that they commit. What they want to do is use that rhetorical tactic to get people in the West who might not understand the material conditions that led to Hamas to just have this equating in their head, right? Everyone thinks ISIS is bad, so if we equivocate these things, everyone also thinks that they're bad as well, which I think is a fine assumption to be able to have in terms of the morality. But again, that obfuscates between the material conditions, because of course, right, nobody blames the West for ISIS unless you're a leftist who's understanding of foreign policy, or other people, I guess. But they want to make sure people don't blame the occupation. That's the most important part of all of this rhetorical strategy, is ensuring that people do not blame the occupation for the creation of Hamas. So by just saying Hamas equals ISIS, that means people just go, oh, well, ISIS is bad, so they're bad. Let's just ignore that and just allow Israel to bomb indiscriminately. That's the rhetorical trick that they're doing.
Deliberately, in my estimation, committed an outrage of such appalling scale that they knew that this would goad Israel into this kind of response. So why they did that, what is motivating it, who might be putting them up to it, who's helped them prepare for this, these are all questions we don't know the answers to yet.
Yeah, we do. Jeremy Corbyn did it. Fact.
But it seems to me that Israel could, if it's not careful, be being lured into a massive trap here. And I hope that is not the case. But I'm curious, how do you get rid of Hamas if you don't do it the way Israel is currently doing it, albeit with horrific collateral damage in the face of thousands of innocent Palestinians being caught up in the bombing?
Yeah. So let me give you a short-term answer, long-term answer. And a lot of people are not going to like these, but these are realistic ways that you minimize.
Number one, make Cenk Uygur president.
True. Make him president, he'll solve everything overnight.
Exactly.
Instantly done,
I mean, that's sort of a panacea for all of the problems, but specifically this one, he will sort it out. I believe in you, Cenk.
Civilian casualties. You do what America did with the Osama bin Laden raid. We didn't go drop a nuke on Pakistan. We didn't go destroy.
No, you just illegally invaded a supposed ally.
Yeah, you raided Abbottabad. You're like,
Yeah,
you implying here, Cenk, that we need to raid Doha, which is where Ismail Haniyeh is currently living in his very expensive penthouse suite.
and then defile the corpse. Now, it's Osama bin Laden, I don't really care. But it doesn't send a great message to Muslims when you defile the corpse by burying it in that way. I don't think either of those things is going to calm the situation, if I'm entirely honest.
No, quite.
6,000 residential buildings in the middle of Pakistan. We sent in special forces. Is it more dangerous to the special forces? Of course. That's the point of special forces. Try to find the hostages. Does it look like Israel's trying to find the hostages? If I have a family member that's a
With bombs. Yeah, they are trying to find them with bombs. Yeah.
hostage, I'm disgusted by what Netanyahu's doing now. How do you know they're not in the buildings you're dropping bombs on? How do you know they're not in the tunnels you're dropping bombs on? How do you know they're not in the hospitals you're dropping bombs on? So if you want the hostages rescued, every rational human being can agree this is not the way to do it. This is the way to do death and destruction for the sake of death and destruction. It's collective punishment. It's genocide against Palestinians, and the world has to speak out. So my way is not pleasant either. It involves a lot of folks dying on both sides. I understand that. Those are super hard choices. But go find Hamas. Go find the hostages. Go rescue them instead of one.
They're in South Wales. We already discussed it.
They are. I mean, but also they're in the tunnels. Like, what are they expecting it to be? Like a tunnel snake, Viet Cong style situation.
Yes.
It's a political solution is going to have to be the solution to this one. It's going to be any military incursion to try and rescue the hostages is going to be basically impossible and lead to huge amounts of bloodshed on all sides. It would be absolutely catastrophic.
As has happened in the past when you've had incursions by the Israeli military, not just the war situation is chaotic. Israeli soldiers will be captured as well.
Especially if you're in the tunnels, it'd be absolutely impossible. I cannot imagine a situation where that would work in the way that Israel would want to do. But clearly what we've seen, given that hostages have already been killed by airstrikes, is that they would clearly care more about razing Gaza to the ground than they do about rescuing the hostages at this point.
Does he think Hamas are all in one building? Yes, they are. They're at 69 Hamas Road. That's where they all are. Fact.
Wantingly, indiscriminately, killing after killing. And let's be honest, when you drop a bomb and a kid's head explodes and a grandmother is incinerated, that is terrorism. Killing 3 times as many civilians as Hamas is terrorism. And it is the same if it is done by a government. Send in as many special forces as you got. We should send in whatever you got to actually do the job at hand instead of what Netanyahu is doing, which is to kill these people to send a message. And think about how unrealistic that is. And think about why his method has a 0% chance of working. How are the Palestinians supposed to rise up against Hamas?
Just do a military coup. That'll work. Go for it.
Yeah, when fucking Israel couldn't defend itself against Hamas, but the poor, broken down people of Palestine are somehow supposed to do it. How does that work exactly?
Just do a military coup, bro. It's easy.
Palestine doesn't have an Iron Dome or nuclear weapons or a well-funded armed force, but they can definitely just do that. Just rise up. Gamers rise up. Am I right?
Netanyahu. No more death of Palestinians, more babies killed. That's what his answer is. And it's this. And the United States of America. I'm running for president here. There's no way in the world.
So you had some credibility for a second there, and you went and fucked it. I'm running for president. Oh well, never mind.
I don't think he can run for president. Wasn't he born in Turkey?
Yeah, well, there's some argument. I was always under the understanding that a naturalized citizen couldn't run for president, whereas a natural-born citizen could. And he's a naturalized citizen as a person born in Turkey to 2 Turkish parents who were not US citizens. But he seems to think there's some quirk where the treatment of naturalized citizens cannot be different to that of natural-born citizens. But this has sort of been tested, so I don't think he's right. Not that it matters, because he's never ever going to be president. But it's a thing that can crop up, I guess. It's complicated. The American system is complicated by the fact that they don't just let foreigners in like we do with Boris Johnson. That worked out really well for us. Glad we did that.
World, I would allow this, sending $105 billion. And it doesn't even go to Israel, Ukraine, or Taiwan. It goes to the defense contractors that bribe these greedy American politicians and then get most of that money. And so
starting to sound anti-Semitic.
I hear my spidey sense tingling.
Exactly. Going after defense contractors, you just did a jumbly crumbles.
Long-term answer is 1967 borders and the biggest walls you've ever seen in your entire life. And no one's allowed to cross to either side. But the Palestinians get their state. It is unconscionable for them not to get their state. And if you're a moral person, of course you believe that the Palestinians are not the only people in the world that cannot govern themselves. If you say that, you are being
Exactly. The only people who can't govern themselves are Britbongers.
True. I mean, that's why Brexit shouldn't have happened. And in fact, we should have had reverse Brexit. We should have been subsumed into the European Parliament and governed by them alone.
Well, look,
we can't be trusted with democracy anymore.
Let's go back to tradition, return to Monka. Angevin Empire. We're just northern France.
True.
Makes a lot of sense. No need for checks at the borders when we're actually still France. So
absolutely.
By definition, bigoted and a racist. We have to have two-state solution immediately. If 56 years of occupation and brutalizing these people is not enough, is 57 years going to be enough? Is 156 years going to be enough? I'm asking Israel, not out of hate, out of love. So many of my friends that I grew up with are Jewish. This is not good for them. This is not good for anybody. Please look into your hearts, look and be the moral people that I know you can be. I've been to Passover dinners where you pray for your oppressors. Now, it breaks my heart, but I got to tell you, you got to pray for those you are oppressing. And to say that you are not oppressing the Palestinians after brutalizing them for 56 long years, you're kidding yourself. And as a friend and an ally, I'm trying to get you to wake up and snap out of this trance. It's ruining your moral fiber.
Cenk?
Hey there, if you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like and leave a comment. That helps the video out in the algorithm. If you subscribe and ring the bell, it'll let you know when I go live. I stream every day on YouTube and Twitch. You can also follow all of my socials down in the description. And if you want to support me in a more financial manner, there's a join button for membership to just 99p to be a member on YouTube, as well as a Patreon, and there's some merch there as well. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.